This is Kim Newlove, host of the Pharmacist Voice podcast, where I share my journey from pharmacist to voice actor and interview a variety of people who use their voices to advocate for something, educate in some way, or entertain so that you can be inspired to use your voice too. This is episode 118, and you can find the show notes with links to anything mentioned today on my website, thepharmacistvoice.com. Today's episode kicks off a 3-part series about pharmacy podcasts. Pharmacy podcasts, in my humble opinion, are podcasts produced by pharmacists, pharmacy technicians, pharmacy associations, and the Pharmacy Podcast Network. I want to give a shout out to Dr. Erin L. Albert. She does an amazing job compiling a really long list of more than 60 pharmacy podcasts. There's a link to the list in the show notes. I first found out about the list from one of Erin Albert's LinkedIn posts. If you're not connected to Dr. Erin L. Albert on LinkedIn, connect with her. She's a wealth of information and ideas, and I love her lists. I also want to give a shout out to Todd Uri at the Pharmacy Podcast Network for creating a network of pharmacy podcasts. To my knowledge, it is the only podcast network for pharmacy podcasts. You can find a list of shows on the Pharmacy Podcast Network at pharmacypodcast.com/shows. There's also a link to Todd Uri's LinkedIn profile and the Pharmacy Podcast Network shows in today's show notes. Now, this may seem like a tease, but I'm pretty much just introducing my Pharmacy Podcasts series. Next week, which is October 22nd, 2021, I'll talk about the pharmacy podcasts that I listen to most and why. Then, in part 3 of this series, on October 29th, 2021, I will give reasons that pharmacists should have a podcast. What's in it for the pharmacist? What's in it for the listener? Join me for the next 2 Fridays to hear more about pharmacy podcasts. Today's episode also includes an interview with the lovely and talented Dr. Christina Madison. She's a pharmacist, podcast host, and founder and CEO of the Public Health Pharmacist, PLLC, a public health consulting firm. Christina is a clinical pharmacist specializing in public health with a focus on infectious communicable diseases. We became fast friends through LinkedIn and Zoom last year during the pandemic, and we had the good fortune of meeting up at the Metapreneur Summit for Healthcare Entrepreneurs in Cincinnati, Ohio, last weekend. That was October 8th through 10th, 2021. It was a fantastic conference with CE, networking, and inspiration for healthcare entrepreneurs of all stages of business development. Sue Paul, Michelle Fritsch, and their support team do an amazing job leading and organizing the Metapreneurs Summit. Dr. Christina Madison helped me try out some new portable podcasting equipment at the Metapreneurs Summit. It's not a full interview, but it's still a good one, especially considering we were in a hotel bar. For anyone interested, we used a 2 lavaliere or lapel microphone set for a 2-person interview. There's an Amazon.com link to it in the show notes. Cost is about $50 US. I recorded my interview with Christina directly into my iPhone, imported the audio file into my recording software, did some editing, and then mixed it down with what I'm recording today. Today, I'm using a single lapel microphone to round out the episode and make it a lapel microphone-only episode. Why not? There are no rules in podcasting. A link to the single lapel microphone is also in the show notes. Cost is less than $15 US, by the way. Now, if you ever need to record into your phone on the go for podcasting or social media, lavaliere microphones are not a bad way to go. They're fairly inexpensive, too. I want to thank my podcasting coach, Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting, for recommending the double lapel mic option. The sound quality isn't perfect, I know, but it sounds pretty good, and the box literally fit in my purse. I'll also put a link to Dave Jackson and the School of Podcasting in the show notes. He's a great teacher. The double lapel microphone set worked great for Dr. Christina Madison's behind-the-scenes video too, which is on her business Instagram account, The Public Health Pharmacist. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. After the interview, keep listening. I created my own version of a public service announcement of sorts to demonstrate why it's a bad idea to record a podcast in a moving car. Now, without further ado, here's my interview with Dr. Christina Madison. Hi, Christina. Welcome to the Pharmacist Voice podcast. How are you?
I'm amazing. I'm so excited to finally meet you in person. And obviously, Metapreneurs is, there's been a lot of anticipation waiting for it since we really didn't get a chance to do it last year. And we're all pandemic fatigued out. And there's so much that has changed in the last year. And I just feel like, podcasting is really growing, and just having a digital footprint and having your voice out there and having audio profiles, I think, is really making this resurgence. So I appreciate what you're doing, because not only are you doing podcasting, but you're doing podcasting well. And and that's the thing, the audio quality, there's not a lot of people who are really into that. And I know if you had to, you could probably rewire an entire jet plane, because now all that, we've had this conversation because you're oh yeah, I know all of these things now about audio that I've never you're basically an audio engineer.
I have learned quite a bit about audio engineering. Yes.
Yeah, your soundproof room and your house, and
oh, I wish it was soundproof. It's just a little bit sound deadening, I guess. But where do you record at?
Oh yeah, I record anywhere. Yeah. So typically, so I have a co-work space that I use, and that's very quiet. We actually have a soundproof booth that I use.
In your home or at
No, this is actually at my co-working space. So I do a co-work share space, and we have a soundproof booth. So I use the soundproof booth in there, and they actually have podcasting equipment for all of the members to use.
That is so ideal.
It's part of our membership. So it's part of your general membership. Yeah.
Only in Vegas, right?
Because that's the thing. Not only that, but they have all these places where you can do photography, because everybody's onto lifestyle photography. I have literally, there's probably on any given day, there's probably 5 to 6 photographers in there doing photography and branding, and people doing little mini, people do mini podcast sessions and record them in the space, because the space is just, the lighting's amazing. It's 2 women own it, and so it's perfectly curated and gorgeous, and every place you turn is a new amazing Instagram photo, because it was by 2 ladies that are fancy pants. So, but yeah, cool. I found it about a year ago, and it's been life-changing, because I do a lot of media interviews out of there too, because I do a lot of Zoom for my TV interviews. And so if they want to do on location, they can meet me there. It's a public space. It's quiet.
That is ideal. Mm-hmm. I wish they had that stuff where I'm from, in Perrysburg, Ohio, but they do not.
Well, that's one of those new business ideas where you're if you build it, they will come.
You are so right.
Yeah, so it's that's this kind of stuff where I'm these 2 women are we wanted a place for us to go that wasn't super expensive. And we know that there's a lot of other women-owned businesses that are smaller that can't get the overhead for this, giant space and these huge, business parks. Let's do something where it's affordable, but then it ends up being profitable. So that's actually how they ended up doing it, because they kind of saw the WeWork, but it was too much. WeWork's a little cray-cray. That's a whole other story.
I don't know about WeWork.
WeWork is another version of what co-work spacing is, but it's not the boutique, individualized kind of effort. So one of the ladies who owns it, she also owns a printing company, so she gives all of the members discounts on personalized business cards, and so it's everything is there for you. So you don't want to leave, because everything's there for you.
Yeah, a lot of good connections. So what you're telling me is that the office of the Public Health Pharmacist is a co-working space.
It is, and I now have my own office within the co-work space too, so I graduated. So before I was just using the open space, but now I actually have a dedicated space. I have a key. My branding is on the window. I know.
You have a door that locks.
I have a door that locks.
And nobody asks you where the bathroom is.
Correct.
Right?
Yes. These are
pharmacists. These are
like low totem pole things and goals, but they are amazing.
Oh, that's great.
Like that just happened.
So when I see the pictures of you on Instagram with you and your microphone, you dress up in a black party dress, right? And you get your mic out, right?
Yeah.
What do you have, like an Electro Voice RE310 or something?
Yeah, and it's a board,
it's
and then we can just plug stuff in. Yeah, I just use all their equipment.
That's a nice mic, yeah. Well, you sound great on your podcast, so keep up the good work. Can you tell folks how to find your podcast?
Absolutely. So right now it's on the Pharmacist Podcast Network, which it's the Public Health Pharmacist podcast. So you can find me there. You can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram. I post videos on pretty much all my different social media platforms. And then if you Google me, you'll probably see some of my media reel as well for local television stations.
Yes, you are quite the public speaker. You're on the radio, you're on television, you're live in public doing things, COVID vaccination clinics. I mean, tell me a little bit about some of the services the public health pharmacist offers or does out in the community.
Absolutely. So my goal is really to get everyone to think about public health and why public health matters and prioritizing it as part of an overall strategy for population health and community health and wellness. And so I see that in a couple of different ways. By me helping businesses being safe and being able to come back to work safely with the pandemic. Also looking at, employee wellness. Are your employees vaccinated? That's a consistency factor. So whenever people tell me, well, why would I make a mandate for my employees? I think it's not just good public health, it's good business, because now you have consistency because you know that your employees will be well enough to come to work, and that's gets down to your productivity, right? And then also I help individual pharmacists if they want to incorporate public health interventions and practices into their current community site or ambulatory care clinic. And then lastly, I do a lot of public health communications and branding and strategy. So I help with that as well. So.
Awesome. Now, I understand that you have some extra initials behind your name. You
do.
have a certain certification. Can you tell me about that?
Yes. So I am credentialed with the Academy of HIV Medicine. So my area of practice and expertise is in infectious communicable diseases with emphasis on public health. But I've been caring for those affected and infected with a positive status for about 15 years. And that's a passion of mine, something that I really felt that I needed to give back to my community, especially because it does disproportionately impact people of color. And so I took the extra step to get credentialed with the Academy of HIV Medicine in 2013 and to really advocate for pharmacists providing HIV prevention services, which shout out, Nevada just implemented legislation and I helped them write the regs, and it goes into effect October 1st. So yay Nevada. Yes. So that was a big thing.
And I understand you also use your voice as an educator. I think I saw on social media that you were advertised as being a speaker at a conference. Was it the Nevada State Pharmacists Association?
Yeah, so I actually was asked to talk about the legislation, so SB 325, which just passed, and then the regs that were now going to be incorporated for pharmacists to be able to do HIV prevention services. So they asked me to come in and talk about that. But I also speak for national conferences, so I'm actually talking on infant and maternal mortality and morbidity for ACCP, which is something that's personal and near and dear to my heart because I did have pregnancy complications with my second baby and almost died of sepsis complications at 7 weeks.
You or the baby almost died? Oh my gosh.
Me personally, I don't talk about it often, but I do in this talk. So it's on October 27th. It'll be released and it'll be available for a month. So ACCP, unfortunately, is virtual this year. They ended up switching it to that, but it's on demand and you can get CE credit for it for up to a year.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you're using your voice as an educator. And we are live at the Medipreneurs Conference right now. We are actually missing out on a reception where there's food, so we're going to wrap this up in a minute.
I don't know if I would say missing out. I would say that we are multitasking.
We're multitasking, that's right. And you are here at Medipreneurs to deliver a talk on Sunday, October 10th. Tell me a little bit about that talk.
So it's more just for networking purposes, just to get out the messaging around public health and talk about some of the masterminds that I've been involved with, because I have collaborated with a lot of the other speakers that have been here at Medipreneurs. So I'm really happy that they asked me to come and be part of this and really advocate for pharmacists getting into the entrepreneurial space, which I think is more and more needed now more than ever, as big pharma and big box pharmacy chains kind of consume us and put us into a box, and we don't, nobody puts baby in the corner. We need to get out there and show what we are made of and be able to practice at the top of our license and really be able to use our education for good.
And people want to be what they can see.
Yes.
And I be seen this weekend.
Yeah, no, I say that all the time. If you can see it, you can be it. And I think that's been what's been so challenging for women in general, especially with the leadership gap. There was a presentation on breaking the glass ceiling, right? So part of that is other women reaching back and pulling up other women to be able to be part of the leadership, just landscape. But then also women of color. So representation matters. And so what I've really learned during this past 18, 20 months of me being in the media is that it's not just the message, but the messenger. And when I've had patients who've come to me and said, hey, the reason why I got vaccinated is because you were the one who told me I needed to, because you look like me and you sound like me. And I know that the decisions are being made by somebody who looks like me, sounds like me, knows my community, knows my culture, because we need to stop having conversations about us without us. We need to have decisions being made not without us, but with us, because representation matters.
Yes, amen to that. Well, I'm glad that people can see you, and I'm glad you're using your voice in the many ways that you have been blessed to have a voice. I think that it would be important right now for people to understand how to connect with you, because you are a wonderful pharmacist, and your shirt says Pharmacists Inspire Pharmacists. So if anybody is inspired to connect with you, how can they do that?
Yes, so at the Public Health Pharmacist, you can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and then Twitter, it's at Public Health RX. But pretty much you can find me anywhere at the Public Health Pharmacist. I am consistent across all platforms, so whatever social media du jour you like.
All right, excellent. Well, it was a pleasure having you on the podcast. We finally got to meet in person, and I'm looking forward to keeping the good times rolling. And
we will follow each other and continue to inspire.
That's right. A big thank you to Dr. Christina Madison for being my guest on episode 118 of the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. She's a real pro at public speaking and a lot of fun to hang out with. Thanks again, Dr. Christina. Please visit thepharmacistvoice.com to read the show notes. You'll find Dr. Christina Madison's social media links, along with links to Dr. Aaron L. Albert's LinkedIn profile, the list of pharmacy podcasts, the Medipreneurs website, lapel microphones on Amazon.com, Dave Jackson and the School of Podcasting, the Pharmacy Podcast Network, and more. So check those out. That's at thepharmacistvoice.com. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend. And subscribe or follow the Pharmacist's Voice podcast on your favorite podcast player so you get each new episode on your favorite podcast app right away when it comes out. Thanks again for listening. Now, enjoy a brief clip of some really bad audio. This is a recording of me on a lapel microphone in a moving car. Folks, never record a podcast in your car. The audio is really bad. Lots of wind noise. Enjoy. Hi, this is Kim Newlove from the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. I am trying out a lavaliere microphone in a moving car. I just wanted to see what the road noise is like, the microphone quality, the audio quality, if you will. And I'm sharing this with you so you know that it's probably not a good idea to record in a moving car.